I love paper books because I mark in them. Now, here is something that I marked in a beautiful book by a gentleman named Jacob Israel Lieberman, PhD, OD. He says, in essence, we live on sunlight. Plants absorb the formless energy of light from the sun and store it in their leaves. When we eat those plants, we literally ingest frozen light, use it, and what remains is its formless essence, light. Now, I love that kind of thing. That's why I underlined it. And it speaks to me very clearly as a vegan because we're nourishing ourselves entirely on those sun-fed plant foods. And today we're going to be talking with an expert on light and vision and veganism. Stay tuned. Hi, everybody. I'm Victoria Moran, and I am here today with somebody that I admire immensely because she gets it. You know that quotation I read to you about the light and all of that? So many people who understand that sort of thing haven't discovered veganism, haven't discovered truly compassionate living. Whether the person who said that is vegan or not, I don't know. I just know that lots of times there seems to be a little gap between the people who are in on the spirit and people who are in on the vegan. Well, today I'm bringing you someone who is definitely in on and up on and an expert on both. And she is going to be absolutely delightful to speak with. She is Dr. Elisa Haransky-Beck. And I'll read you her official before we jump in. Dr. Elisa B. Haransky-Beck is an optometrist and wellness practitioner, spiritual nutrition counselor, embody vision somatic yoga teacher, educator, and speaker. She specializes in facilitating natural eyesight improvement to deepen insight and witnesses people rise into their true mission in life, their raison d'etre, for arriving on this wonder-filled planet at this incredible moment in time. She is the author of a stunning book that I highly recommend, Enlivening Consciousness, Deepening Your Journey Through Vision, Movement, Nutrition, Nature, and Spirit. And her website is enliveningconsciousness.com. Welcome, Dr. Haransky-Beck.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It is a total honor and pleasure to be in your presence, your bright, beautiful, brilliant presence, and your work has been so incredible that I'm just feeling really blessed right
Oh,
now.
bless your heart. Well, I think we are sisters of the spirit. We seem to see things in some very similar ways, and I always think that makes for a really special conversation. And I'm hoping that the people listening are feeling the exact same way. So, for those who have not yet discovered your wonderful book, Enlivening Consciousness, or haven't heard you speak somewhere, help us get to know you and tell us what started your healing journey.
I think I came into my parents' presence late in their lives. My mother was about 40 or so when she had me. My father was 50. Is because my father was an experienced pharmacist at that point, and my mother um, was ready for me apparently. Um, and I kind of grew up with a dad who was a pharmacist who didn't believe in drugs unless absolutely necessary. He always believed in antibiotics and heart meds and, different meds that were really critical for people to, their survival. But that was kind of the take on life that I entered with. Um, my father filled prescriptions for Rachel Carson when she was dying of breast cancer. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., in a place called Silver Spring, Maryland. And Rachel Carson had migrated from where I live now outside. She lived in Pittsburgh, but she I live that outside of Pittsburgh now, but she moved to the Washington, D.C. area when she worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And nobody knew that she was dying of breast cancer. But basically, that's where I come from. And I always loved to dance and move growing up. So I was professionally trained in ballet. Um, and then when I was about 50, I'll just fast forward. When I was about 50, um, I landed at a place called Hippocrates. At the time, it was called Hippocrates Health Institute. And if you don't know, it's a wonderful place. I went there for 3 weeks when I was 50, which was what no, yeah, 50, which was 15 years ago, right? So I went there and I was a carnist at the time. I ate chickens and I ate fishes and I ate all the things, um, and I it changed my life. And I kind of went there more with a health interest. Now we'll fast forward to today in this moment, this many years later, being vegan, we change. Our bodies change, our brains change. And now, and I have a background, a real strong background, activist background, in environmentalism. So it's the environmental aspect, it's the health aspect, and it's the animal aspect. So it's kind of, like the Silash Rao, and I didn't ask how to pronounce his name. Like
You were
Victoria.
good. Dr. Silas Rao, climatehealers.org.
Okay, so he actually did his pinky. Remember when he did his pinky
Pinky
promise tour?
promise.
He did a thing with. I founded Vegan Spirit along the way. I founded in 2019 Vegan Spirituality Southwest PA with the amazing Lisa Levinson. She talked me into it as I was completing my master's degree in spiritual nutrition with Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who you may or may not know.
I
I
do.
know Victoria knows, but the audience may not know that he models raw living foodism. And so that came 3 years later. I wound up with a master's degree in spiritual nutrition. I was to write my master's thesis on reversing diabetic retinopathy using the raw living foods lifestyle. What does that mean? Well, in the back of this is my eye model. In the back of our eye is our retina, right? All the blood vessels in the back of our eye are very delicate vessels and are affected by diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. Uh, Type 1 being the type of diabetes that you acquire or is noticed when you're young, and type 2, which is, and I'm going to just say this out loud, 100% reversible with dietary intervention, preferably raw living foodism. For a period of time, you can reverse that form of diabetes very easily. But Dr. Cousins lost his funding for that particular study, so I pivoted and wrote my master's thesis on the range of veganism, from raw living foodism to junk food veganism and everything in between. And I interviewed about 40 people on Google Forms. It was way back in 2016, 17. Remember Google Forms and all these things? And I wrote up, my master's thesis based on that kind of study. But that's me in a nutshell. I'm an eye doctor. I have practiced natural eyesight improvement since 1987. And I've always been fascinated with the idea of getting better and improving and broadening and widening. And so it ties in with, our peripheral vision. How do we expand our awareness? How do we improve our depth perception? Not just so we can see a 3D movie, but so that we can appreciate the depth and the texture of life in every precious moment. And then
Wow.
how does it tie into spirituality? Well, we are light beings. We are electrical light beings that thrive. Dr. Jacob Lieberman, I know well, he's a colleague of mine who very early left the fold of mainstream eyesight and vision care and is a deeply spiritual practitioner. And that beautiful quote from him that you started this interview with, um, we are, when we rise with the sunrise and bring in the light of the sunrise, the reds, the oranges, when we experience the full spectrum of light during the day outside without sunglasses, sunglasses are an addiction. If you're photophobic or light sensitive, that's something else that, unless you have a certain disease process that's already developed, very easy to reverse in a very short period of time. And so these things are, and then going to sleep with the sunset. So reestablishing your circadian rhythms through your eyes, through your vision, is of utmost importance for health and wellness. And it can become a spiritual practice no matter how you identify. Do you identify with a religion? Do you not identify with a religion? Waking with the sunrise and going to sleep at or near sunset is the first thing you can do to just re-equilibrate your system. Why? And what do your eyes have to do with it in your visual system? As we expose ourselves to the early morning light, we are literally stimulating the mitochondria, not just in the cells of our eyes, but throughout our entire light body. So as you start to vision yourself through your third eye, which is in the center of your head, your pineal gland, which in most of us is mostly a vestigial or organ that is not even known about or awakened. Once you start to awaken your visualization ability, your depth perception, your peripheral vision, your tracking ability, your near to far focusing ability, you become more your true self, right? More of, we all know, we've heard the rap, we only use a certain percentage of our brain, right? We
Mhm.
have so much potential, so much.
Well, let's get practical for people so they can start making a kind of to-do plan. So we're going to probably not go to bed with the sun because, you know, we just stay up later than that. But let's go to bed at a reasonable time and not have the blue light from computers and screens for the hour before that. And now, when you talk about going out in the morning, I want to get real clear on this. Is this just a quick out on the patio, hello, sun, back in? Is this 20 minutes? What do we need to do in the morning in our busy lives to get this so essential light?
So the first thing would be, it depends who you are and what's possible. So for example, some people can't go outside. Do you have a window that faces east? Okay. There's a whole range of how you can begin your day with sunning, and I'll describe that technique. One issue would be, can I go outside? If I can't go outside and I don't even have a window that faces east, okay, that's one scenario. Another scenario would be, absolutely, I'm getting outside first thing and I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to walk outside. I live in New York City, perhaps, which I don't, but I think Victoria does, right?
I do. Mhm.
So she's got to make an effort to get out there, and she's a busy lady. This busy Victoria may realize, once she takes the time and allots 10 minutes for the sunning and palming, but she allows a half hour for this process in the morning, and she might say to herself, and I'm just using you as an example because you're right here with me, but you say, I don't have a half hour. Well, what if that half hour time shifted you? So you allow the half hour, you allow 5 or 10 minutes to get downstairs, you walk outside, you maybe take off your shoes if it's spring, summer, or fall, you find some grass. This might take you 15 minutes, I don't know, in New York City. And then you stand or you sit maybe next to a tree, maybe you lean part of your body against a tree if that's possible. If that's not possible, don't do that. Sit on a bench if you're not comfortable on the ground, or stand. Stand on the sidewalk. Close your eyelids gently. So let's take a moment before we practice sunning by gazing away from the computer screen. But wherever you are, yesterday, interestingly, I was at the Pittsburgh Vegan Fair. It's an amazing event that happens once a year. It was indoors. And I was speaking to some vegan jewelry vendors. And I was giving them this mini lesson that we're sharing right now. I said, and they were both nearsighted, meaning they couldn't see far. So they were wearing their contact lenses. They were in their mid 40s, and they were looking very intently at me. And I said to them, as you're watching me, so in this case, as you're looking at your device, Victoria and Elisa, take time to come back to your breath and then gaze out. If your computer screen is facing a window, gaze out the window. If it's facing a wall, look to that wall, which is at a different distance and it's beyond. And you can see Victoria has shifted her head and her eyes, and that's a beautiful thing. And then come back to the screen and let's take a look at each other for a moment. And for me to do that, I have to look right into the camera, to look as if I'm looking at you. But I need to now explore my peripheral awareness. In my case, when I look directly into the camera, it seems as if I'm looking into your eyes, I have to see Victoria with my peripheral vision because I'm not looking directly at her. And she's nodding. I picked that up with my peripheral vision. I saw her head going up and down. So why don't you do that? As you're looking straight ahead, pick up your hands and wiggle your fingers, like shimmer them. And as you're gazing straight ahead, can you notice your right fingers more than your left? Play a little bit with your peripheral visual field and notice how you might sense things differently on the right side or the left side, or they might be identical, okay? And now release your arms down by your sides. Close your eyelids gently. Feel your feet on the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, if you're standing, notice how the soles of your feet are resting on the earth. Notice your breath. Breathe deeply, slowly, naturally. And then if you're like Victoria and myself in front of a computer screen, imagine that you are facing the sun and that it's a sunny day. If you have found yourself outdoors, or you were outdoors the whole time you're listening, face towards the sun, whether or not it's a sunny day. So in that case, you need to know where the sun would be. An interesting exercise for many of us, especially if we live in the city. Breathe. Notice the warmth of the sun if you're outdoors and it's a sunny day. If it's a cloudy day, or if you're sitting in front of a device, visualize the warm sun beating on your eyelids. Notice the level of light and sense your eyeballs. Just notice them. And then you could do this with your eyes open or closed, but we're going to sense and palpate or touch our orbital rim, which is the bone that's around our eyes. So you could take two fingers, your forefinger and middle finger, and come into the inner part of your eyebrows and just move out towards your temples and kind of trace along your orbital bone. This is the bone that protects your eyeballs, right? And then come out to your temples, come down below your eyes, and then come all the way back into the inner part of your eyes. And then you can do that a few times. So you're just palpating or touching or massaging gently, light touch across the tops of your cheekbones. I'm noticing some wrinkles. I'm happy about my wrinkles. And just notice how that feels. You could even take your fingers out towards the sides of your temples. You could gently palpate or touch your forehead, this beautiful muscle on your forehead, your cheeks. And then rub your hands together. Close your eyelids gently if they're not closed. And take the heel of each hand and rest it on your lower bone just below your eyes. Cup your hands and drape your hands, cupped hands, over your eyes. And you might notice the light level has shifted or changed. If you're sitting at a desk, you could prop your elbows up with a pillow, a blanket. Notice the light. Notice the darkness, perhaps a velvety darkness. Perhaps you're noticing flashing, you're noticing colors. Notice what you notice. Notice your breath. Notice your feet and ankles, your knees. Notice your hips. Notice the bones on the bottom of your bottom sitting on your chair. Notice their weightedness. Do you feel more on one side than the other? Notice your shoulders. Are they hiked up? Can you relax them? Notice your tongue. Is it relaxed in your mouth? Notice your eyeballs. Sense them and breathe. And then, with your eyes still closed, release your hands back down into your lap. And when you did that, did you notice a shift in light level? And now, pretending or visualizing that there is sun in front of you, and there may be, gently rock your head a few inches to the right, just a little bit, and then come back to center. And then come and rock your head a little bit to the left, just a little bit. And as you do this, notice and bring your head back to center. You can continue doing that slowly, just a little bit. As you do that, can you notice what your muscles in your head and neck are doing? Just noticing, being very gentle, mindful, slow down. Can you notice any movement in your eyes as you rock your head from side to side? And then come back to center. Blink your eyes open when you're ready. Actually, you could do that slowly, especially if you're in a bright situation. You're not looking at the sun, but your eyes are open and you may be facing in the direction of where the sun is, and that's fine. If you're too sensitive to the sun, turn away from the sun. Turn in a different direction or go in the shade instead of grabbing for your sunglasses. Consider that as a possibility. Or put on a hat with a visor and breathe and sense. So that was an example of the sunning and palming sandwich. And sunning and palming are two incredibly powerful tools for natural eyesight improvement. How long do you do it? We did it for a fairly extended period of time, but I wanted to weave in different possibilities today. You could weave it into your daily walk. And then in another 10 minutes, pause, rub your hands together and do some palming for a few, 1 minute of each of these a day. Start with that. Because if you do that, the sunrise doesn't last for that long. Those different shades of reds and oranges and pinks and purples and then it comes back to the blue, or it comes back to the cloudy sky. It doesn't last long, but the idea is, can we love ourselves enough to heal ourselves? Can we love ourselves enough to take the time of our perception, out of the perception of our days as busy, using your sense of interoception. Interoception is the sense that you feel of yourself inside of you. So can we take the time to sense ourselves and then notice the spaciousness, the awareness, the increased peripheral vision and central vision, and ease of near far focusing that comes out of that. And yeah, so that brings it back to the practical: sunning, palming, getting up with sunrise, going to sleep as soon after as possible. Here in southwestern Pennsylvania, where we live, those are reasonable things now because the sunrise is at about, I don't know, 6:30, and the sun doesn't set till like 8:30 or not. I mean, get into bed by 10 o'clock, you know.
Yes,
I'm
definitely.
I'm laughing because I don't always follow this advice, right?
Well, it shows up in so many. I know Ayurveda is just absolutely just almost fanatical about, this going to bed with the sun, or 10 o'clock, getting up with the sun, or 6 o'clock, just to keep that camaraderie with nature. So thank you for your generosity in that. I know we're always short on time here, and so that was really very, very kind of you to do something so experiential with the guests and with me. And for anybody who was scratching your head like, wait a minute, I'm listening to this podcast. What's she talking about? Seeing things. We also now put the Main Street Vegan podcast on YouTube. So it's on my YouTube channel, Victoria Moran Official. So if you wanted to see us, usually I say it's just a couple of people talking, but today we actually did something. So it makes sense to be there on video. So I would like to talk some about your beautiful book, Enlivening Consciousness. And you are, as you said, an eye doctor, and you talk, excuse me, in the book a lot about vision and natural vision improvement. But even in the subtitle, it's movement, nutrition, nature, and spirit. So you've really got this whole package. So you've talked a little bit about vision, and let's move now kind of more quickly, unfortunately, through the other aspects. And I know you have a background in dance, so talk about movement.
I was a small child. I was a toe walker. I learned that very much later in life. And that's why my mother put me into ballet classes, because I was a toe walker. And it turns out I learned also later in life that there are developmental patterns that some children kind of develop into that are not necessarily quote unquote as normal as can be normal, right? And so I did spend through my first year of college in ballet. I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer, but I'm, for those of you that haven't met me in person, I used to be 5'10" and a half. I'm a little bit less than that now that I'm 65. I've lost about an inch, but I'm tall. And as a ballerina, when you're on point, you are much taller than most of the men that are there. And I'll just put a shout out to my classmate who I was an understudy for growing up in Bethesda, Maryland, Susan Jaffe, who is now the artistic director of American Ballet Theater in New York. But I grew too tall, but she was always way more talented than most of the rest of us. So, but I've used movement throughout my career. I've studied the reflexes that underlie vision development. I've studied with the esteemed Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, body mind centering, Mark Taylor, body mind movement, and I have many somatic movement education certifications and practices. I call my practice that I teach now Embody Vision Yoga or Embody Vision Somatics. Movement became a therapeutic means for me to, if you will, self medicate. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I eat healthy, mostly whole food, plant-based now. I was a raw living foodist for a period, but I love to move. I'm if I have an addiction, it's to somatics and movement practice on a daily basis when I wake up for at least 5 or 10 minutes, ideally a half hour or an hour when I wake up and go to sleep. Do I do that every day for 2 hours? Maybe at least 3 days a week, but not 7 days a week. What can an individual integrate and incorporate into their lives that's practical? If you can do sunning and palming, you get it on your radar. If you brush your teeth every day, it takes you at least a minute or two. You could add another minute or two a couple of times a day, and then, or when you wash your hands, just close your eyelids gently and then blink them open. Rub your hands together, do some palming. You'll start to notice that time expands. But I'm digressing from movement, but I'm not really, because sunning and palming, I've never even articulated it this way, but it makes sense to me in this moment, are movement practices. They are embodied movement practices depending on how you choose to do them. If you think you're doing calisthenics and you just have to kind of do it because it's a good thing to do, you're not going to get the same benefit. You'll still get some benefit though. So if you are more conscious when you are outside and you start to look around and look at the leaves on the trees and you start to trace visually the branches, this is movement practice. I don't write about it that way in my book exactly. My movement chapters are very much kind of, I have to admit, more geared for people that are movement practitioners because I couldn't resist. I was trained with Bonnie Cohen in 1988 and 89, just when I graduated from optometry school. And I used it very heavily as a recovery modality from professional school. So I did a deep dive into asomatic movement practice that's on the floor. You start out pretty much in a fetal position, in child's pose, for those of you that know yoga. And you go from there, it goes into a natural eyesight improvement vision practice. And if you are comfortable with that, you're comfortable on the floor, go for it. Record it and then practice it. But I even say in the book, if you're not really into this, just skip to the next part because my book it is 5 books in one.
Yes.
So that's
Okay,
all I'll
so we're
say
gonna
about,
move. We're gonna take care of our eyes. We're gonna get out in the sun,
yes,
close our eyes. Remember, we're not talking about looking at the sun with open eyes, so don't anybody
no.
harm yourself that way. Then we're gonna do the movement. So the next part is nutrition. So
So
it's interesting that you've gone from raw to more whole food plant-based. So just give us a minute or two on that process.
So, just so you know, my book, I wanted to title it Vision Veganism, um, Movement, Nature, and Spirit. Then I wanted to title it Movement Veganism because these are things that come before vision. Because vision is it's the emergent sense that comes from all of it. But my editors and even Brian Clement told me directly, the only input he gave me on my manuscript was, don't use vegan in the title. It'll scare people away. I couldn't believe that, but I listened. So the nutrition chapters 5 are all about stepping into wellness through plant-based nutrition. And I start those chapters talking about, hey, you could dive into raw living foodism if you really want to cleanse. I don't know if I even recommend it anybody for long term because it takes healthy raw living foodism takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to prepare the nut milks and the different things. If you really want to be pure about it, I mean, it's easier for me to eat whole food plant based because I don't have to eat as much. But it's great to chew, right? Chewing is also a movement practice that integrates with raw living foodism because you have to. Well, the first time I went to Hippocrates, I had my plate piled up to the sky. I thought I was going to starve. I thought, what are they feeding me here? I'm going to starve. And I took an hour to eat that plate because I had to chew so much. I was chewing sprouts and I was chewing 6 different or 10 different kinds of sprouts. And it took me forever. So what was your question, Victoria, about
No,
food?
it was good. Just some of the nutrition stuff that you talk about. And I know for me, I've explored raw living foods. Actually, I wrote a book called The Good Karma Diet that's about high raw living. But I've moved away from it as I get older and get more vata, as Ayurveda would say. I just need a little bit more grounding. But I completely agree with you that doing some of that for periods of time as a healing modality is a beautiful thing. And then the next thing is nature. And this is really interesting to me because I've never felt like a real nature person. And everybody always thinks that's weird because I'm vegan. But, I'm just urban. And the best things in my life have always happened indoors. But since talking with you and others that really are sharing the essential nature of spending time outdoors, I am doing more of that. I am in New York City, but I am lucky that there's a courtyard in my building. There's actually two sun decks, one for sunrise, one for sunset. So I am employing those more, thanks to you. So give us a little bit on nature.
We are nature. We are alive. We are light. We are living. You can go outside in New York City and find a planter that has a plant and touch the leaves. Just touch the leaves with your fingers. And you are creating um, a connection, a light, living light connection. You are, when you rub your hands together, which I modeled to do before palming, and you put your hands on your own body, you are sending infrared light back into your body. You are resetting your electrical system. You must do these things, especially as you become more of an elder, because we taking self responsibility become stronger and then have more energy to help other humans and animals. As we are depleted and allow ourselves to disconnect through our, by not putting the soles of our feet on the earth, by wearing shoes that have rubber soles, that have synthetic vegan soles, there's got to be another way, not to use mushroom leather by using mushrooms that are part of the mycelial network. And if you don't know, but by creating mushroom farms where we can harvest those mushrooms and make that mushroom leather the soles of our feet, right? So I'm calling out veganism that allows plastics, because synthetics and plastics, microplastics, PFAS, I just learned yesterday that Lululemon there's a class action suit against Lululemon because the PFAS levels are so high in their clothing. This is an epidemic of dis-ease and cancer causation because we're thinking plastic is okay for life. It's not good for animals. It's not good for humans. It's not good for the earth. And so we really all need to call ourselves out and take self-responsibility and let go, in my view, of our holier than thou views. And that way more people will be invited into the world of plant-based awareness and all the benefits of how we become more sensitive beings.
Mm.
So the
So
nature, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that. So you're not saying to use leather and that kind of thing, because that's what.
I'm not condoning the use of leather. However, I am saying that there is so much leather right now on the planet. What are we going to do with that? Is it the responsibility of people who are staunchly vegan to address that issue? What are we going to do with that? Is it best to allow it to simply biodegrade and use plastic? I have a big issue with that, and I'll tell you why. Because I live in southwestern Pennsylvania, where Shell Petrochemical has just built the second largest petrochemical plant in North America, and they're manufacturing little plastic pellets called nurdles. If you've never known that word, you should look it up, because my guess is if you're vegan, your clothing is made of it that you're wearing right now. And the soles of your shoes and your shoes are made of it. And you have no idea the destruction and decimation that you are creating for yourself, for the animals, and the planet. But I was a fractivist for a decade. I founded a loosely formed nonprofit called Sustainable Monroeville. I live in Monroeville, a suburb of Pittsburgh, but I didn't grow up here. People here are acclimated to the toxic legacy, and on planet Earth right now, all persons in Western civilization have been acclimated to toxicity. And if you're vegan and you're wearing synthetic clothing, I don't consider you a vegan. Why? I don't consider you vegan because you are polluting not only yourself, but me and the animals, and that you're disrupting the hormones of humans and all living beings. And that's why there is so much hormone disruption that causes all kinds of problems. And this is a huge issue that the vegan community has not addressed. So if somebody has an old pair of leather shoes and they're 50 years old, like I am, should I put those in a landfill and go buy some plastic shoes that have PFAS in them, that are manufactured and polluting the heck out of southwestern Pennsylvania, but you can't see it anymore because it's invisible? So you can tell I'm having to come back to my breath now. I'm having to ground. And I have a synthetic carpet in our house. You can see part of it over there, but underneath my feet, I have um, a towel that's made out of cotton. So my feet are resting, and I have a grounding mat. I don't happen to have it under my feet right now. But my point is, we are all imperfect, and I understand that. But I'm still wearing some shoes that I've had forever that I probably couldn't even touch. They would cost $500 now. They cost $50 25 years ago, and they have leather soles. I honor that animal that I'm walking upon, but I'm not going to buy a pair of plastic shoes to replace that, because they're drilling miles down below my feet right now, and they're putting carcinogenic chemicals in my water in southwestern Pennsylvania. And it just was in the newspaper a couple of days ago in this Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that PFAS levels have not been monitored in southwestern Pennsylvania. And this is feeding poison to the people and the animals. And this is a sickness that we all need to wake up to, and that we can move through on a dime. By next year at this time, we can change the whole planet when vegans start to go into businesses that are creating mushroom mycelium so that they can make shoes for me.
And lots have, the work of Joshua Catcher is somebody that I would recommend, who's so good on the fashion front. And one of your mentors, Brian Clement, and his wife wrote Killer Clothes probably
Yeah,
15 years ago
right.
that address that issue. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to talk a little bit, or want you to talk a little bit about what you do for people who want to connect with you. I know you mentioned your Wednesday morning class, so tell us where to find you, what kinds of things you have going on. That would be helpful to people.
Okay, okay. And thank you again. Thank you for asking. So, I'm an eye doctor. I do personal private consultations. If you live in southwestern Pennsylvania, I'll see you in person. If not, I work through Zoom or on the phone. I do hour-long consultations, and often once somebody works with me for an hour, they become their own advocate for when they go for an eye exam, and they can help the eye doctor that they're going to understand how their own prescription can be reduced. But I'm happy to work with people long term if they need more. I off and on offer free natural eyesight improvement studies. And as the word free is coming out of my mouth, I'm actually conducting what may be the last natural eyesight improvement study. So if you are seeing this and it's in a timely fashion, let me know. Reach out to me through my website, enliveningconsciousness.com. you can reach, I'm on the other end of that. You can reach out to me directly there. I'm on many Facebook pages. My Elisa Beck Facebook page is kind of by default the main one, but I'm also there as Dr. Elisa Haransky-Beck. I'm there as Enlivening Consciousness. I'm there as Embody Vision. But you can reach out to me through private message on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, although I don't look at it often. I have an Instagram account. You would have to ask to be, to see my content there. It's a smaller account, but it's called Embody Vision. So I'm an eclectic. I have a lot of hats. I also we are offering, 7 of us somatic practitioners are offering a free a 10-week series that begins, and this does date this, but it will come out prior. We're offering a 10-week series beginning Monday, May 11th, 2026. It runs for 10 weeks from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. live Eastern on Zoom. If you're interested, reach out to me. I will get you the information. It's an introduction to somatic practice. I'm one of 7 teachers. It's 10 weeks, and we'll be working through the practices in the book Somatics by Thomas Hanno, who was one of the luminaries in somatics. It's very gentle practice. It's mostly on the ground. So if you're not good at getting onto the floor and standing back up, you could do it in a seated position. But yeah, that's in a nutshell what I offer. And I also speak. I'll be speaking. We have Vegan Spirituality Southwest PA here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. We meet monthly or every other month for potluck, vegan potluck. And I'll be in LA I'll be speaking, doing some experiential stuff, just like you heard or saw here today with Lisa Levinson on August 22nd of 2026 in LA. So I'm
Oh, very
excited.
nice.
I'm
Okay,
excited. I've
vegan.
never met her in person.
Oh, she's lovely. Founder of Vegan Spirituality, co-founder of the Interfaith Vegan Coalition. Lots of good stuff going on out there. So I do want to do a shout out to the wonderful sponsor that helps us do this program. And those are the good people of Complement. They are supplements made by vegans for vegans. And if you go to the website lovecomplement.com, and look at all of their wonderful, wonderful products. They've just added on something really cool that I'll make a point of talking about in the next couple of weeks here, which is a sulforaphane. And I know we need to be eating our broccoli and eating it properly. As Dr. Greger says, you either need to let it sit out on the counter chopped for half an hour or use mustard seed or mustard powder with it to get the sulforaphane. But if you want a little extra, you can check out what's going on there at lovecomplement.com. And if you use the code Main Street, all capitals, you get 10% off not only your first order, but every order forever going forward because I am grandmothered in. So take a look there. And also, please take a look at mainstreetvegan.com. This is where we have the show notes and we have all the ways that you can find Dr. Haransky-Beck. And you can also subscribe to our weekly blog and get the newsletter and just be part of the family. And of course, that is the home for Main Street Vegan Academy, training and certifying vegan lifestyle coaches since 2012. We're going to be changing that to Main Street Vegan Coach Training Academy. So it's very clear what we do. This is for people who are already vegan, who want to take it out there in the world and start a business, maybe mushroom leather or who knows, restaurants, food trucks, all kinds of people have come through the academy and done all kinds of things, coaching, writing books, working for plant-based businesses and animal rights charities. It's a beautiful, beautiful program. It has my heart. Take a look, mainstreetvegan.com. And also looking forward to next week, my guest will be Nathaniel Altman. And Dr. Elisa B., if you do not know Nathaniel, you guys would get along. Look him up and see his many, many books that are very much in these same areas where you are raising consciousness for people. Nathaniel's latest book is The Genealogy of Plant Foods, Spiritual Nutrition and Medicinal Power of the Foods That Sustain Us. So that will be coming out next week. And of course, while we're talking about books, be sure and look up Enlivening Consciousness by our guest today. That subtitle is Deepening Your Journey Through Vision, Movement, Nutrition, Nature, and Spirit. So thank you, Dr. Elisa B., for deepening our journey today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you give to the world, and to everybody listening. Thank you for your time and all you give to the world. Now let us get out there and make Main Street vegan.